Hi everyone, I'm Megan Hyatt Miller, COO of Michael Hyatt and Company, here again with our CEO and my dad, Michael Hyatt. We want to welcome you back to this special video series, the Stay on Track Goal Tracking System. This is our new 3-part mini course to help you stay focused all year long. In this installment, we'll show you how to translate your goals into actionable next steps so you can start making progress today. Dad, it's great to be here with you again.
Thanks, Meg. Good to be with you.
Yeah. So, one of the things that happens for most people, especially if they're not seasoned goal setters, is that they want to develop really extensive, detailed plans for how they're going to accomplish their goals.
Yeah.
What could actually be a problem with that strategy?
Yeah, so it depends kind of on how you're wired, but there are some people that really go overboard on planning. They create elaborate, detailed action plans. And the problem is, if you're not careful, that can simply be a very sophisticated way to procrastinate.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot easier than actually doing the work.
Right.
So it's actually in the doing of the work that requires the effort and requires the focus and all of that. So you just got to be careful about over-planning. And I can see the value of doing a couple of steps ahead, but you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself because after all, if you're setting a goal that's in the discomfort zone,
Yep.
you're not going to see the path clearly to begin with. You don't really know how to do it. Like let's say you're trying to write a book for the first time. You've never written a book before. How do you know all the steps that are going to be involved? Now I've written 8 different books, so I pretty much know what's going to be involved in writing a book. But for a person that starts at the beginning, probably the most important thing they can do is just start, and they'll figure it out as they go.
I think you're right on that. One of the things that we see in terms of mistakes that people make most often is that they get married to their plan or their strategy. And this is one of the dangers of creating an elaborate plan, is that you get married to your plan or your strategy instead of the goal itself. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the goal is the what, your motivations are the why, and your strategy or the steps that are required to attain the goal are the how. The problem is that there's nothing sacred about the strategy.
Right.
The what is more important than the how. So you might try one strategy and that doesn't work. So you've got to retool and try another strategy. But somebody that has the characteristic of persistence will stay at it until they achieve the goal. If one strategy doesn't work, they'll try another strategy. So you can't get married to strategy. That's really going to derail you and keep you from achieving your goals if you do.
Absolutely. So on the one hand, a plan can cause you to procrastinate. On the other hand, it can really take you off track because you can be so committed to that plan because perhaps you spent so much effort creating it that you forget that that's not the point in the end anyway.
Yeah, I see this happen a lot of times with people who come from a corporate background because they see strategy as such a big deal.
Right.
Strategy is not that big a deal. I tell people in the corporate world, vision, or in our case, goal setting, is way more important than strategy. Strategies are just the best way that you can see right now to get from where you are to where you want to be. But another strategy may appear that would be more effective and more efficient later on or down the road. So don't get married to the strategy. Stay connected to the goal, but use a different strategy if the first one doesn't work.
I totally agree. So the antidote to that, though, is to focus on the next steps
Yes.
rather than elaborate planning. And this helps to avoid procrastination. Talk a little bit about why next steps are so important.
Well, first of all, the next steps are something that's doable. In other words, it's manageable. So you've got this big daunting goal. Like I'll just use the same example of writing a book. That sounds pretty hairy.
Yeah.
If you've never written a book before and you think about cranking out 50 to 70,000 words, and maybe the longest thing you've ever written was a blog post, and now suddenly you decide you want to write a book or you've got a contract for a book, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, and you just get freaked out and overwhelmed
Sure.
and procrastinate like crazy.
We've all been there.
Totally. So, and this is a little hack that I learned. I said, okay, what's the first step I can take today towards writing that book? And so one of the first things I did when I first started writing, and I use this today, is I set up a folder system on my computer, one folder per chapter. Okay, so it's that simple.
And that was your next step.
That was my
Just
next step.
that.
Set up the folder
Yeah.
system for the book. Maybe the next step is, and let's just assume that I've already done a book proposal. I've got a table of contents, so I don't have to do that. Maybe I'm just going to do the front matter. I'm going to put in the copyright statement and the title and the subtitle, and I'm going to go ahead and copy my table of contents in there. Maybe put a dedication in there. Just really simple stuff. And that's all I'm going to do today.
Yeah.
And then for a next step, it might be, I'm going to write, out of these 12 chapters that I need to write, what's the easiest chapter to write first? Okay, this is really important. Sometimes people think that it's easier if they start with the most difficult thing first. Like you've probably heard the adage, eat the frog first, which means get up in the morning and do your most difficult task first when you've got the most energy, because then you can accomplish it. Everything else is downhill from there.
Yep.
Here's the problem with that. That's like me walking into the gym and my trainer says, let's go over to the bench press and let's press 150 pounds without warming up.
Right.
That would be stupid. So you need to warm up. So the same thing, go back to the book writing example, I want to warm up a little bit.
Yeah.
If I tackle the most difficult chapter first, what do you think is going to happen? I likely won't finish, I'll get discouraged, and I'll throw the whole goal out the window. But if I say I'm going to write the easiest chapter first, then I've got half a chance of actually completing this book. Because I write the content that I know the best, I write the one that seems the easiest, and now I'm starting to get some momentum. And then for me, I always write, or say to myself, what's the next easiest chapter? And so in my last book, Living Forward, when I wrote that, I did the whole first draft myself. I did write it with Daniel Harkavy, who was my co-author, but I did the first draft first. So when I finally got to the 10th chapter, which was the most daunting, the most difficult, the one that I didn't dare start with, now I had 9 chapters under my belt. Do you think I'm going to keep that one chapter from me finishing the book?
You had a lot of momentum.
Had a lot of momentum. I had a big head of steam.
Yep.
And so I said, heck no, I can write that. I've got 9 chapters. That's the only thing standing in the way for me finishing. And so I knocked it out. I literally wrote that last chapter in one day.
That's fantastic. Okay, so I want to go back for just a second, though, because I think sometimes people aren't really sure what constitutes a next action. I know I've gotten confused on this myself, and I've kind of confused benchmarks or milestones, what I think are the way that I've chunked down the goal into steps as a next action, but often that is not small enough. So I want you to talk about what is a next action.
Okay, so let me contrast it with what we try to do in the goal. So in the goal, we said that it can be set in one of 3 zones. It can be in the comfort zone, which we don't recommend because those goals are usually not compelling enough to ignite our imagination and really focus us on achieving them, right?
Right.
So we think it's going to be easy, but it's just not compelling.
Right.
Zone 2 is the discomfort zone where we feel fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and that's where we want the goal set.
Yep.
Because all the important stuff happens in your discomfort zone,
Right.
and we want to dial it up. We just don't want to be in the delusional zone where it's too crazy, okay? So what we want, though, for our next actions is we actually want those in the comfort zone.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So here's the thing. We want the goal in the discomfort zone, but if we chunk it down so that it's incremental, so that it's a baby step that we can take, then we're much more likely to begin. Okay, so let's just say, for example, that I wanted to lose, I'm just going to pick a number, 20 pounds, okay? And that may sound daunting. You know, maybe I've tried every year to take that weight off and I've never made any progress. And it just seems daunting. 20 pounds, where do I even start? And so a lot of people tend, and this is a real danger, they try to get almost like a get-rich-quick scheme for weight loss.
Yeah.
You know, some magic bullet, something that's going to, help them do it in 21 days or whatever. And that usually doesn't happen.
Sure.
Because the best way to accomplish a goal is to take incremental steps over time. So the first step, and this is what I mean by a next step or a next action, might be something like, I'm going to call the gym and get their recommendation for a trainer. And so I'd literally state that on my task list for today. Call, so I'm starting with an action verb, call the gym and ask for a recommendation of a trainer. That's all I'm going to do today.
So it's just one discrete task.
That's right.
It's not even accomplishing something. It's not, for example, finding a trainer or choosing a trainer, which would be an easy mistake to make or an easy thing to confuse with the next step or the next action. You're really saying like calling is the one next action you're going to do today.
Exactly. Or it could be something like I'm going to post on Facebook that I'm looking for a trainer. Do any of my friends have a recommendation?
You want to put the bar so low that you can basically fall over it, half asleep, and win.
I want to get to the end of the day having accomplished that. And feel like I'm making progress, because maybe tomorrow I'm actually going to call that trainer and I'm going to set up an introductory appointment.
So you're going to set the bar low enough where you know you can get over it without a lot of effort for that one day.
And I'm going to go just incrementally toward the goal, one step at a time.
I love that. I think that's such good news for people, because I think, goal setting is really fun. And then it's like the second week of January, now you actually have to do something, right?
Right.
And it can feel really overwhelming to know how to start to make progress. And if you're not careful, what happens is you just kind of put those goals away and you forget to look at them.
Yeah, it's just too
which
much.
is tragic. That's really sad,
is.
and it's certainly not what we want people to be doing.
And literally any goal, I don't care how big it is, can be accomplished if you take it one step at a time. I mean, it's the old adage, how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Well, you're trying to find the bite. But the key is, what's the next action?
Yep.
And then put it on your task list and check it off so that you feel momentum.
Fantastic. All right, so I know what people may be thinking right now, which is, but how do I know what the next action is? Sometimes these big goals that are in the discomfort zone are paralyzing.
Yeah.
And they might even feel a little overwhelming, and that's good. We want that. We want you to feel a little bit of discomfort. That's the whole point. However, we don't want you to feel that when you start to break it down into your next actions. But how do you know what your next step is if it seems unclear?
Well, a couple things. One is you don't have to get it absolutely positively right, because these are little steps, and if you take it and it's a wrong step, it's not going to derail you. It's like, okay, I was going to call the gym, and let's say I call the gym and the gym says, we don't have personal trainers, or all of our personal trainers are busy. Well, it's not like, oh, there goes the goal.
Right.
It was a small next step. So then I think, okay, like I said earlier, maybe I'll just post on Facebook and see if anybody has any recommendations, right? Or I'll see if there's an association. So this is what I'm talking about. Don't get married to the strategy.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to try several different things to finally work. Here's another thing to do, though, and we maybe want to talk about this later, I'm not sure. But get a coach.
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
so any goal that's worth pursuing, that's a goal in your discomfort zone, somebody has been to the mountain. You don't have to start from scratch. So when I wanted to learn to play the guitar, what did I do? I hired a guitar teacher.
Right.
When I decided I wanted to learn to fly fish, what did I do? I hired a guide. When I decided I wanted to get in the best shape of my life and do strength training, what did I do? I hired a trainer. Yeah. Now, lest somebody listening to this think, well, I don't have the money to afford a coach. Coaches can appear in a variety of ways.
Yep.
For example, it could be a book. It could be a podcast. It could be an article on the internet. It could be a friend. It could be somebody at church. You've got to get resourceful with this, but you need to be able to bring in an outside resource. That's one of the keys. So, for example, I had strength training on my goal list for several years in a row. And I was doing the cardio stuff fine, but I wasn't doing the strength training.
That's hard to do on your own.
It is hard to do on your own. And I did it kind of one season of my life, and then I just couldn't gin up enough motivation to do it. And so I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, look, I'm just stuck. I have this on my goal. I've had it on my goal list for the last couple of years, and I'm not making any progress. And he said, dude, you need to bring in an outside resource.
Yeah.
He said, call a trainer or get an accountability partner that you can work with.
Or join an exercise class.
Exactly. I mean, it was like I wanted to slap my forehead because it was so obvious, but I hadn't thought of it. And that's another huge reason why people don't accomplish their goals is because they don't get help when they get stuck.
Absolutely.
So if you're stuck in your marriage or a really important relationship, or you're stuck because you'd like to be in a relationship and you can't seem to get a date,
Yeah.
or you're stuck in getting that book started, or you're stuck because you can't launch that business, I don't care what it is, somebody has figured this out. Somebody has been to the mountain, and you need to be resourceful. You need to call in an outside resource.
I think this is a really important strategy, whether you're 6 months into pursuing a goal and you find yourself stuck, which often happens for people, and that's when people bring in outside resources. But if you ever feel stuck, if you feel stuck before you even gotten started with identifying your next action, an outside resource, which could be, like you said, it could be a person or it could be just Googling something. Either way, the resources are everywhere, and it's a powerful tool for getting unstuck and getting clarity when you don't have it on your own.
Well, literally 99% of the goals that we want to pursue in our life are things that other people have accomplished.
Absolutely. And that's such great news.
It's such great news. And so I'm saying to myself, whenever that happens, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Somebody's done this. Somebody's figured it out. They know the most efficient way. They can save me all the heartache and the headache of trying to do it on my own. Forget that. Do it the most efficient way. That's why I usually start with some kind of research. Like if I was going to write a book, I'd want to know, does anybody have a course on this? Does anybody have a book on this? Is there somebody I could talk to? Do I have a friend that's written a book?
Right.
Ask them for some information.
Chances are the answer is going to be yes.
Yep.
Like 99% chance.
Exactly.
So how do we develop the discipline of initiating action? So let's say, we know we need to break our goals down into next actions and identify those. We're clear on what they are, but how do we consistently take action day after day in a way that creates progress?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I don't like to think of a goal and come up with an entire long action plan that I have to pursue. There's a sense in which if I do that, I kind of get a little bit of a psychological satisfaction of having the plan, and I may look at that and think, well, I've already got it nailed. I've got the plan, right? So I'm not going to get around to doing that right now, but maybe later I'll get around to doing it. I like keeping those lists relatively empty. And so that when I look at a goal that doesn't have a next action item identified, then I'm thinking to myself, okay, what can I do next? What phone call do I need to make? What email do I need to send? What kind of conversation do I need to have? What do I need to look at online? What do I need to do next?
And we talked about this in the previous video. You're actually asking yourself this question on a daily basis.
Yes. So one of the things I'm doing in my goal review, as we talked about in the last video, is that I'm reviewing those goals, just really quick, high level, 60-second review, and I'm looking at each goal, the ones that I haven't achieved yet, and I'm asking myself the question, what action could I take today to move the ball down the field in the direction of the goal? And I want it so simple that I can accomplish it today.
And the way that you're doing that on a regular basis is you've just made it part of your routine, so that you've actually created a habit around it, is
That's
really
right.
what you've done.
This is part of my morning routine, which consists now of about 9 different things I do, but one of them is my goal review.
That's fantastic. So a lot of people, when they think about setting goals, they want to make huge progress, big progress. They want to get to the end of the week or the end of the month and have some massive accomplishment that they have to show for their work. But really, success is about incremental change. Why is that so important, and why do we tend to devalue it so much?
Yeah, I think we live in an instant gratification culture where we just don't want to wait. You know, we want the result now. You know, we find ourselves maybe $100,000 in debt, and we think, gee, what, multi-level marketing program, not that there's anything wrong with that, but, or what business can I start, or what uncle can I knock off and try to get an inheritance? What can I do to just pay this off now? Instead of realizing, like Dave Ramsey teaches, let's just pay these off one at a time. So let's start with the smallest debt first, forget the interest rates, start with the smallest debt first, go to the next debt and get a sense of momentum. Very thing I talk about in not eating the frog first. But it's important to do it in that way.
So how do we keep ourselves going, though? Because let's be honest, incremental progress is not that exciting. Oftentimes, we don't even realize that we've made as much progress as we have until we look backwards a little ways and we see how it's adding up. But it can almost be discouraging or not that exciting. So how do we stay engaged and excited when we're just making inch by inch progress, not mile by mile?
I think we have to have a visceral conviction that incremental change is going to lead to the result. And if you think about your own life, this is how it works. Like if you've ever been successful in losing weight, it's not because you bought something off television that promised you an instant result. Those usually, I've never had them work, and I've tried a few. But usually it's when I'm going to start keeping track, for example, of what I eat, or I'm going to start working out, and I'm keeping track of that. And I find that if I do that on a consistent basis, I might lose a pound this week, or a pound and a half this week, or half a pound this week, whatever your rate of loss is. And before long, we've had people in Best Year Ever that have lost 80, 100 pounds in a year, not because they found the miracle cure, not because they bought something off TV, not because they went out and killed it in some kind of crazy exercise program, but because they did the basics a little bit each week.
That's great and encouraging, I think.
Yeah.
So we're kind of wrapping up here, but I've been thinking as you were talking about the difference between people who set goals every year, maybe, but they don't usually accomplish them, and the people who do, especially as it relates to the topic of next actions and the things we've been talking about today. What do you think are the mindset differences between those two groups of people? What are the people who win year after year? What do they do in terms of how they think about their goals that the folks that don't make progress avoid?
Yeah, I think part of it is this whole thing of why. That's why we spent an entire day in Best Year Ever talking about our key motivations. If the goal's not really that important, you're going to lose focus.
Sure.
You're going to get distracted. You're going to discard it. But if it's a goal that's really meaningful to you, it's something you really want, and you're very clear on what's at stake, you're going to stay in the game, right? So several years ago when I was trying to finish my book, Platform, Get Noticed in a Noisy World, I got really busy in the fall when the book was due. And I just lost focus on the book, and I got really discouraged. I finally finished the first draft when the book was due, but I couldn't turn it in because I just said, this is not very good. This is not my best work.
Yeah.
I'm not proud of it. So I thought, well, maybe I should just pay the money back to the publisher and decide I'm not going to do it. I mean, the book's not that important. I've written before. So I had 1,001 excuses of why I didn't need to finish. But then I found my list of my key motivations. And I said to myself, well, wait a second, what's at stake? Well, at the time, I was beginning a new business. That book, I knew, would give me the visibility and the authority I needed to really launch a business, which, as you know, turned into Platform University and was the foundation for everything else that we've done. I said, I want that book to really be able to help gazillions of people out there who, like me, want to start a business or get visibility for a message or a product, but don't know where to start. And I learned how to do that by building a platform. And so I just reviewed those things that were viscerally so important. And I said, not just, I guess I'm going to finish this book. I said, I must finish this book. This went from being a have to a must. And the difference was my motivation and my sense of connection with that motivation and really understanding and feeling emotionally engaged with what it was at stake.
I love that. I think that's a game changer right there. So Dad, thanks so much again for being here with us today. This was fantastic content.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us today. I hope this video has shown you how to break down even your loftiest goal into small, manageable steps that you can take action on today. In our next video, my dad will give you an inside look at his own goal tracking system. Plus, he's going to give you a click-by-click demo of the tools he uses and reveal how he stays connected to his goals year-round. We'll see you there.